Mr. Christian Roblin from the French Association of Authors and Publishers.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Digital libraries are faced with formidable challenges that are due to a change of support. We are going to look at these challenges before considering solutions. Libraries are faced with technical challenges, namely digitization of data. The quality of this digitization, it's the possibility to use it, its reliability, the certification, the quality itself of metadata, and its embedding and inclusion in the systems. The difficulty of accessing quickly texts and having reliable metadata to contextualize documents and therefore allowing better use, to better understand documents that otherwise wouldn't be understood. There are also other technological challenges, such as different formats that we need to solve. So define standards that will allow long-term use and cheaper use than what is currently available. According to our participants, there aren't major problems of preservation because the duration of the media is not really a problem with the redundancy of files on many servers. So probably fewer data than we think will get lost. But we need to insist on the fact that over time, millions of documents will be lost. So the task is really daunting. The technical teams that will digitize books will be faced with massive problems. They need specific competences, and we need huge investments that will come from private and public funds. Now, given this situation, public and private partnerships have been done. That's the case for Google, for instance. Now, the Google case stirs different reactions. Google seems a sort of postmodern figure of Renaissance and humanism, and we are well placed here to remember that. But according to others, it's something a bit dodgy, not very transparent. And it's not quite clear what sort of practices it is engaging in. It must be said that the quality of digitization by Google still needs to be improved, and lots of work needs to be done to give quality to the materials researched. Other partnerships are possible, of course, public and private, for instance. We're talking about alliances here between different institutions, between private and public partners that will have to face common challenges. The second challenge is a collective challenge, and it's not strictly technical. It is about networking, about creating relevant networks. And in many cases, it is about having sort of selective approach that can really provide added value, as Mr. Racine said this morning. But this doesn't apply everywhere, because in some small countries, the opposite is true, because it is about digitizing everything that is available in libraries. We wonder, can digitization provide an added value and provide something different, not simply digitize what we have? Obviously, we can provide something new by adding translation capacities or some comments, and also methods of reading or reading profiles, such as automatic reading, for instance. This has been mentioned by visually impaired people representatives that will really help visually impaired people to access to literature and books. this really has great potential for blind people, basically. All of this can provide something else, and that was mentioned by all workshops. But all of this, shall we say, requires additional competences. And this entails a change in the librarian job profile. Now, their profession is about meeting face-to-face users. Now, users are quite collaborative, both within and outside the libraries. Spaces need to be reorganized, and readers need to engage into a sort of physical dialogue. And there is a need today to be there physically. For most of us, well, if that was not the case, we would have had a Skype conference and we wouldn't be here. Actually, on the contrary, we felt the need to be here, to be in touch with one another. Challenges, though, are quite clear, even though the situation is quite complex. We understand that we need to acquire new skills, and trainers reassured us that they perfectly understand what they need to add to their curricula. So we also need to help and support the public, the audiences, and I'm not talking only about educated people, but also those that have been left behind by the digital divide. The role of digital libraries is then different. It is a sort of collective challenges that calls for national recommendations that encourage cooperation. That is already the case for orphan works in Europe, which are covered by a draft directive, which is now being debated internationally. The problem of developing countries has been mentioned under different respects. Of course, the problem lies in costs, but also the link to the sacred nature of book. That's the case of India, for instance, where there are sacred writings that hold a very important place in culture. Indians, on the other hand, are fantastic IT experts. They have outstanding skills, and that is acknowledged internationally. So we'll see what happens there. Then there's also an interesting question about defining public libraries. What are the criteria to define it? What is a library? A participant from Africa noted that she had to pay a small amount to access the PC of the library, and that didn't fulfill the criteria laid down by an IT expert of this world. And so she couldn't avail herself of the money from the foundation. Anyway, there are many problems and many aspects that need to be improved. In this context now, what is the place of publishers? Publishers reminded us of the fact that their job stays the same, their mission is the same. And what is their mission about? Well, their mission is about choosing works and promoting them, whether physically or online. Mind you, works are always intangible assets. What we share is not paper, is spirit, ideas. But there is somehow competition of coming from the extension of libraries that might be faced with harsh competition. So we really need to define the mission of libraries quite clearly, and we need to understand whether libraries will hold other collections, or will host some elements that might threaten the very existence of physical books. Anyway, publishing will still be a risky industry. And I'm talking about something other than financial stakes because it is also about promoting the quality of works. Then another element that emerged is awareness about the fact that there is a need to develop international and national cooperation. We need to provide interoperability and automated translation tools. In other words, the rules of the game that respect copyright, but at the same time guarantee access to cultural heritage. We heard from some representatives of the developing countries, and they tended to be quite in favor of preserving copyright as is. We know what the skills are, and some solutions and potential roads to explore have already been outlined. I think at the end of the day, these three works produce a positive vision, all in all, and an encouraging one as well. Thank you.